Welcome to another episode of the Career Talks podcast. As always, I'm your host, Orlando Haynes. Each and every week, I do my best to bring you amazing guests with amazing advice. Well, not do my best. I do my best. You get what I'm saying? Because the guests are absolutely fire. They bring you actionable advice for your career and life. And so, super excited to host yet again a friend out of the Canadian space there and market. She is on fire doing her coaching, her speaking, and she allowed me to give her a brand new nickname, aka the well-known introvert. So let me bring on Miss Lissa Appiah to the stage. How are you?
Hey Orlando, nice to see you again. I'm doing good. I'm good. And I love the nickname.
Awesome. So if you got to get some t-shirts, just tag me on something,
Yeah, fair enough.
But you heard it here first, the well-known introvert. So I wouldn't say your specialty, but let me first ask you, share with the folks more who are re-seeing you again, but being exposed to you for the first time, who you are, your background, etc.
Sure. Well, I've been on the show before. We were trying to figure out how long it's been, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, and it's really great to be back. I'm Lissa Appiah. I'm a certified career strategist and an executive coach, and I work mostly with introverts, helping them to be able to work on their branding, uncover their strengths, to excel in their careers, either to make a career change or to get promoted. And I also worked with teams, helping them similarly uncover their strengths so they worked better together to boost team performance. So yeah, that's what I do.
Love it. So when you think about, the first thing that just popped in my head when you said that is, I wonder, and you can answer that for sure, how do you find the introverts? Do they come out their shell to reach out because you built such an amazing personal brand, and so they know, they're like, oh, there's one of us who's doing what we want to do, and now I feel more comfortable. Like, is it tougher to find those that are introvert versus those that are extrovert in terms of client support? Clients you work with.
No, actually, most people reach out to me because I'm an introvert and because I'm speaking to introverts. So I think my messaging is so clear and people resonate so well with my stories and with the brand that they understand. And a lot of times when they come to me, it's like, oh, finally, someone who actually understands what I'm going through. Even when in my own career, at some point I was thinking, maybe there's something wrong with me. Maybe I'm the problem. And I often hear this from my clients where they're like, it was hard for them to articulate what exactly was going on in corporate, and them seeing my post just really resonated and aligned with them. So no, not difficult at all finding introverts. We make up to 50% of the population, so we're definitely
Wow.
out there.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, walk us through your journey, because as an introvert, helping introverts, that, I don't know, was that an initial struggle for you to be like, okay, I'm going to, first help myself, then help my, introvert community. What was that journey for you to be able to break free and then now say, I'm going to reach out and help others?
Yeah, the journey started I want to say over 20 years ago when I was in school trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my career, and realizing that if I wanted to excel in my career, there were certain things that I saw other people do in terms of being more vocal, being more charismatic. And I always told myself, I can't be that person. So I was almost limiting myself because of my personality. And, that's also the time that I even understood what being an introvert is. I always knew I was more quiet. At some point in life, like when I was much younger, I was shy, but I'm no longer shy per se. So, there is a distinction between being shy, because extroverted people or extroverts can be shy as well. So a lot of times people think being introverted means you're shy, but being introverted is more about energy management. Do you thrive or do you gain energy from being alone, or do you thrive and gain energy from being in a social setting. And a lot of the way the workplace is set up is around networking events. Let's do brainstorming session. Let's have drinks after work. Everything is about socializing. And that's also the way that you gain exposure. And I didn't want to do any of those things. Like I didn't want to talk to anybody. I wanted to do my work, and I did it well. I was really good at what I did. It's just I didn't want to do that social aspect of it. So at some point I was like, okay, so does this mean that that's it? Like I can't move forward because of my personality? And that's when I started becoming more creative and coming up with different strategies to still get visibility without always like stretching myself and exhausting myself by going to every networking event or by going to every after work social. So that's where the journey began. And then to answer the second part of your question, how did I like make the decision to support introverts? When I started my business, initially I wasn't focused on introverts, but at the time I was working with a coach, and she was asking me like why I decided to start the business. And I used to have a nonprofit organization, and I was working with youth to help their development. And on an annual basis, we had a huge conference that we used to have called Level Up. And that was, you know, I always had an interest in career development, and eventually in 2020, I started the business. But when I was sharing that story with her about the journey, and she was basically saying everything that you're saying is related to being an introvert. Like that's ultimately what led you to start the business. And I was like, oh yeah, I never realized that. And then I started testing the waters, just putting content out there about being an introvert, and it really resonated with people. And yeah, here we are many years later, and it's the focus of my business.
Love that. Love that. And so when you think about the steps you took personally, how
Mm-hmm.
much of that are you incorporating in your business and in your framework for other, you know, like-minded folks? I love that how you phrase it. It's an energy thing in terms of saying I'm shy. And so how much
Mm-hmm.
of that are you implementing in your training where you're seeing like-minded traits that's helping these folks kind of come out of their shell a little bit?
I would say a big part of what I do is it's not about changing people. It's not about
Mhm.
getting people out of their shell or causing them to be different. It's actually about helping them recognize the strengths that they have and validating
Mhm,
the
mhm.
strengths they have. Because a lot of times people think that, okay, if I want to excel at work, then I have to be that extrovert person. I have to be the one who's always talking. I have to be the loudest. I have to overpower people. And what ends up happening is they exhaust themselves because that's not natural to them. So they're forcing themselves to be somebody else. So what I'm really teaching, and this is ultimately what I had to do in my own journey, is actually understand what are the strengths that I have and how can I market those strengths so that they're seen as valuable in the workplace. So I'll give an example, and this is an example that I've shared quite a bit just because it was that time that I was able to say like, okay, I actually do have strengths to offer and I can leverage them and market them for career success. But I was working on a project at the time, and I was part of a team. I was a junior analyst. So I used to work for the federal government here in Canada. And we were analysts who were pretty much doing the same work. We're negotiating with a foreign government. And so for me at the time, I was like, I need to find a way to stand out because we're literally all doing the same job. And if I want to be able to excel, I need to find a way to stand out from the crowd. So I would hear the more senior analysts talk about corporate reporting, and it was kind of part of the role you did, through your negotiations, you had to report back to the system in terms of what was done, what were the KPIs and all that. And I didn't know much about it or the requirements at the time, but I told
Mhm.
myself I'm going to learn all I need to know about corporate reporting. And this could be a way for me to stand out. And that's what I did. And over time, what was happening is that there would be meetings, and often with executives that would happen. And with time, I would put my hand up and be like, hey, I can participate, I can support. And that's how I kind of built an expertise around me related to corporate reporting. Fast forward, what ended up happening, I went to a meeting with an executive building a new team, and they were looking for somebody with corporate planning, corporate reporting expertise. And that's how I landed my first promotion out of 5 that I landed in less than 8 years. And it all started from me leveraging my listening skills, being able to listen and read between the lines, and something that somebody else, if you're more focused on, I need to be seen, you're thinking, okay, senior analysts are here, managers are here, I'm just going to make sure I'm talking all the time. But instead, I took that opportunity to use my listening skills that I know that I have, and a lot of introverts have, to be able to understand what are the needs of the organization right now, and how can I align my strengths and my skills to meet that need. And so a lot of the work that I do with my clients is around that, being able to leverage their existing strengths to excel in their career.
Now, do you also work with both entrepreneurs and corporate folks, or just corporate folks?
Yeah, I do have some entrepreneurs that come to me as well, because a lot of the work also relates to personal branding. And so, yeah, I do work with some entrepreneurs, helping them build their personal brand, helping them leverage platforms like LinkedIn so that they can gain exposure for their businesses. So I've worked with like founders of nonprofit organizations, as well as business founders, helping them elevate their personal brand.
I love that. So walk us through a little bit of the framework, because I'm sure I don't want you to give all the sauce away of your coaching program, because they got to get in. They just got to jump in and invest in themselves and partner with you on that. So walk us through like the initial framework for folks that are listening now, or catch the post broadcast, about how do you go about identifying their strengths? Because sometimes most folks don't know, or haven't put their finger on it and say, oh, yeah, this is a strength of mine.
Yeah, I use a combination of a DISC assessment. So that's a career assessment. And, there are so many assessments out there, and they all have their benefits. There's, strength finders. There's a bunch of them. So whatever it may be, I don't use it as like the answer to everything, but it does help sometimes gain insight that the person may sometimes overlook, because that's often what happens when I'm talking to professionals. They overlook the things they do naturally. They're just like, I'm just doing my job. It's not really a big deal. I do that naturally. But the assessment can sometimes help uncover some of those things. So that's part of it. And then I use a storytelling approach. So really going through the person's story, going through their accomplishments. And I think you have a tool that helps people write their career stories, but that's ultimately what I help people do. Use their story to uncover their strengths. And then from there, based on whatever career goal or career target they have, a lot of my clients are looking to step into their first leadership role or excel in leadership. So based on the strengths that we've been able to uncover, matching those strengths with the needs of a leadership role, and then identifying what's the gap, because they may have skills that they acquired as an individual contributor, but now that they want to step into leadership, the skills they need to develop sometimes are different, from public speaking or communication skills, or even learning how to manage a team. So then we work on how do we fill the gaps so that they get that level that they want in their career.
And so with those folks, as you're going through that, and then the conversation comes up more around building a personal brand, and that's both inside of corporate, right? Inside the corporate walls. So you're recognized for promotions, and then leveraging the LinkedIn platform. Are you seeing there? Obviously, we know there are folks that just don't care about it, don't need it. Like, hey, I'm good where I'm at. But for the ones that want a little more exposure, thought leadership, because they're thinking outside of just the corporate walls, how are those conversations? Because that's another step, right? That's a whole nother step to now say, I'm going to put myself, my thoughts, my expertise out here for the world to read in view. What do those conversations look like there?
Yeah, I would say recently those conversations are very much around job security. That's something that a lot of people are concerned about. And, there's a lot of instability in the job market, but the economy generally. So I would say lately that's the direction of the conversations that I've been having, where people are realizing that I've been in this career for 10 years, for 20 years. I've been in the same job. I've never had to apply for a role. I've never had to actually brand myself to be able to say, I want a new job here or a new job there. So people are realizing that need to actually create a brand and actually market their skills and their strengths. And so personal branding is becoming the tool to support them to be able to do that. And I would say that it is the new form of job security because it allows you to not only look at the job that you currently have, but actually look at your career. When you're building your personal brand, it's for your career. And so whatever may happen to that job that you have right now, you know that your brand will support you to make a shift or to make an adjustment if you need to. Whereas if you're only thinking about the job you have currently, if there's an organizational change or, they make adjustments in the organization and you have to leave or you need to look for something else, it becomes challenging when you've never intentionally set the tone for who you want to be or who you are as a professional.
That's good. That's really good. And so when you look at the landscape of the introverts, you said it's about 50%. What was that number?
Yes, 50. Canada, wow. US. In other countries, it may be different, but in Canada and the US, 50%.
Got it. Love that. And so it's what you wouldn't think it'd be that high when you think about high achievers and executive teams, but they're just strong executors who figured it out how to navigate the walls. And so you said also that you have folks that are looking to become first time, managers and leaders. Right. And so that dynamic itself is a completely different type of conversation too, on top of what you're already doing, to say, now you're going to be dealing with personalities and the responsibility, and then all the mechanics that come with being middle management. It may not be the fun part of the job, but how are you framing those conversations, right? Because I always say middle management is probably the worst job in the world because you got to manage up and down and keep both sides happy, and it's like it's a struggle. So true. How are you framing those conversations? Yeah, making sure they're like, are you sure you want this? You're not just going after the title and the compensation, but you really understand the responsibilities here.
Yeah, for sure. So an interesting thing that I'm seeing, and I read an article about this last week, but a lot of people lately are seeking maybe not managerial, but leadership roles, but they don't want the management aspect of it. So that's something that I'm seeing also as a bit of a trend where people are like, I do want to move up in my career. I do want to be able to get to those leadership roles, but I don't want any direct reports. So that is something that is happening. But for my clients that are like, they know what they want. They want the leadership opportunity. They want to manage people. The conversations are really around them understanding their strengths, as I was saying, because that's very important. But then how do you interact with people based on your own strengths? So, when you're working with other people, it's important that you are adaptable. You can't think that, okay, I'm in the workplace and everybody's going to be like me. And that's why we often see a lot of challenges within teams, within organizations, because you have the leader who wants to hire people who are exactly like them. And so you get, 5 times of the same person and you encounter issues, right? So being able to understand yourself and understand where maybe you have strengths, but you also have areas of development or improvement. And how can you balance your team or hire people or support people so that they're also excelling in their strengths, but also supporting you to even out the team in terms of strengths, but also in terms of the work that you need to deliver and the results that you need to deliver. So that's a big focus of the conversation. You understand your strengths. How do you help your team understand understand their strengths. So everybody's working at their full capacity, but also managing their energy. Because as I was saying, being an introvert is very much about energy management. So time management is a big focus of what I do, also helping people balance their schedules and their calendars, because, especially as you move up into leadership roles, become an executive, your calendar starts to fill up quickly. And, I have clients who are VPs, and they are still having the struggle of, how do I balance my energy with the amount of work that I need to do, because they're finding themselves midday, they're completely they're exhausted. They're completely exhausted with the amount of work they have to do, the amount of people they're managing, and then with their personality and managing their energy. So that's a big part of what I focus on. And also public speaking. So, as you move up as well in your career, there is an aspect of you being called on to go to a conference and represent your organization, or to be able to speak here, or even to speak in a team meeting. When you're an individual contributor, sometimes you can kind of fall in the background and kind of say, oh, my manager is going to do the talking for us. But then when you become the manager, you're the one who has to talk at this point. So getting comfortable speaking up in meetings.
What are some of the misconceptions of introverts that
Oh my
you
gosh,
want to
what a
share with the
question.
folks?
There are so many, I feel. That introverts don't like people. That's one that people say all the time. Or the one I was saying about introverts being shy. And again, going back to the fact that it's about energy management. It's not about whether I like people or I don't like people. Introverts typically do like certain people, maybe more selective in their choices, but typically it's not about, liking people or not. It's more about how you interact with people and your energy. So I would say that's a big misconception that people have about introverts. I've been called shy, I've been called antisocial, I've been called a loner, and that's not who I am. But just because they were seeing me at work mostly quiet doing my work, they just assumed I was antisocial. So I would say that's one of the biggest misconceptions that people have about being an introvert. What other misconception do people have? Are you an introvert? Now that we're asking, now we're talking about misconceptions, would you consider yourself an introvert, or are you more
No,
extroverted?
I'm more extroverted, but
Okay.
I love my alone time at the same time. Like
Okay.
for the folks that follow me, who watch my content from the church, a lot of times right after church we'll break and I'm sitting in my chair. I'll just stay in my chair. All the things that are going on outside of that, I'm just off to the side, just quietly chilling. Or even if I go to a career fair and you have to be interactive, but then, like you said, that energy management, you're burnt. You're like,
Yeah.
okay, I don't want to pick up a phone. I don't want to talk to not one person. I don't care if it's exciting news, bad news, good news, whatever. I'm just so emotionally and mentally drained from the high level of engagement that I need time away. And so, but yeah, I would say I'm more on the extrovert side because I can go into any circle and kind of connect and make conversation.
Okay, that's good to know. That's good to know. Yeah, I think a lot of times that's like the main misconception people have. But even certain things like
Mm.
introverts are more like bookworms. Like, I have books behind me. Yes, I read books, but I don't spend hours and hours reading books. Certain introverts do, depending on what type of introvert you are. There are different types of introverts, but
Mhm.
it's not like every introvert that is a bookworm that enjoys reading. So that's, I'll say, another misconception people have. But yeah, those are some of the misconceptions.
Okay. So I know you have to go. You have a meeting coming up, and so last
I
question I want to
do.
ask
Okay.
is, yeah, you have the room of a bunch of extroverts. Give them one or two tips on how to be advocates and supportive of the introverts without being, judgmental and misconception minded.
Yeah, it's a really good question. And it's interesting because as much as I work with introverts, I do work with some extroverts as well. And some executives or some leaders do reach out to me sometimes on LinkedIn, and they literally tell me like, oh, I'm following you because I didn't realize I had introverts on my team. But when I read your content, I can recognize my team members through your post. So I'm making adjustments to the way I lead just based on some of the things you're sharing. So at the beginning, I didn't even think of that aspect of what I was doing. But as I was getting messages from extroverted leaders sharing that, I was like, okay, this is helpful to anyone, right? It's helpful whether you're introverted or extroverted. But to answer your question, I would say team preparation, like team meetings, preparing for team meetings, that's an area that I find that a lot of my clients find it challenging. Because, for example, you send a meeting invitation and you don't even say what the meeting is about, just send a meeting invitation and expect people to show up, and you want them to show up and you want them to participate. So if you are going to send a meeting invitation, at least let there be an agenda. Be clear about what the meeting is going to be about, and that can help your team members actually prepare, because preparation is a huge thing that helps introverts to be able to contribute without feeling stressed, without feeling nervous about the meeting. So I think that's an area that would be extremely helpful in the way that meetings are prepared, and also not putting weight on just receiving input through like verbal communication, because people communicate very differently. Maybe somebody wants to be able to submit their input after the meeting, or they want to submit it to you in writing. Being open to other means of communication so that everyone has the opportunity to get their voice heard. So those would be the two things that I would say.
Love it. Love it. Lissa, share with the folks where they can connect with you, consume your content, and partner with you for coaching.
Yeah, the best way to find me is LinkedIn. So Lissa, 2 S's, Appiah, and you'll find my content mostly on LinkedIn. I am on YouTube as well. So I have longer form videos where, more educational, so you get more insight there. And then for coaching services, website is weapply.ca. And yeah, I'm looking forward to connecting with you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Lissa. Have an amazing weekend, AKA, folks, again, the well-known introvert. Love having you on. Make sure you follow, subscribe to the podcast, subscribe to her YouTube channel, and really get connected. Introduce her to some of the people that you know that need the help. But we look forward to seeing you next time here on the Career Talks podcast.